Hello, it is I, Broderick Wallace. How you doing? Just feel like turning the camera on and talking to myself in the dark. Don't mind, do you? Anyway, get comfy, get cozy, and get serious, because you know I'm serious, right? I mean it, I am serious. I want to talk about dreams. Of course, throughout time, you know, back in the day, ancient world, all that kind of thing, dreams were taken more seriously. The world that we go to in sleep, there wasn't that, you know, kind of reductionist attitude towards, you know, it merely being the brain playing out scenarios in order to sort out psychological problems, although that's certainly going on. Let's think about the vacancy of mind exercise, which is my favorite form of meditation, and liken that to what psychedelic exponents are coming out with recently, which is if the brain is a receiver of consciousness, if the complete being is interdimensional, is stretched out across different dimensions or planes, which is the occult view. You've got the physical body. So, for instance, in the Franz Bardon system, which is, you know, common to you know, the majority view in the occult, there is also the astral body that exists in the astral. And when you say that word astral, it does conjure up it has got a little bit of a new age kind of connotation to it, only through association with how often it's misused, I guess. But I like it, you know. It's even though technically it means the stars, it has a lovely ring to it, kind of likening the world in which that body exists to something stellar, something bright and ancient. I guess it conjures up the idea of star worship to me, but just a personal thing. So I really do like that word. And then there's the idea of the spirit, this threefold division: physical body, rooted on the Kabbalah in Malkuth; astral body, rooted on the Kabbalah in Yesod; and then as we pass up the central pillar, you get to Tifereth next. So this is where the HGA is placed, and the question is the HGA something almost separate that you're bound up with, or is it just the you that you don't realize? In other words, the notion of this filter. Anyway, we'll go up. You pass through the mystery of Dart, and then finally the Godhead. So you can see how this is as above, so below. As we move down from Kether, the head, which is not very significant, through the mystery of death in Dart, and into the realm of the HGA, the higher self. So where is the spirit? Well, I guess the spirit would be caught up somewhere around that point, wouldn't it, of the HGA? But it's eternal, right? So it's, or potentially eternal. So for me, in my mind, it would stretch up, and obviously everything's connected anyway, all is one, but it would connect up with the idea of well, the notion of Christ, Son of God, and all that. We are each a spark of divinity. Every man, every woman is a star, and all that kind of thing. So exact definitions are not possible, but it's nice to speculate and think about these things. So if the brain is a kind of receiver of consciousness, if we look at that map, then immediately we're in contact with, or perhaps unaware of, the soul, which is seen as a kind of ghostly double. So that's kind of, it is you, but it's not eternal, but it's going to be, after the physical body dies. That's the first. That's where the baton is passed on in terms of consciousness, and that would relate strongly to out-of-body experiences. The experience of being asleep, again, tying in the sleep thing here. All of a sudden, usually, quite often, there's an entity bound up in this, an outside entity, or entities, but that's another issue. You become aware that you're outside of the body. If you're unfortunate, you'll just experience the paralysis, the classic hag attack kind of thing. I've never experienced that as such. I've had kind of little forays into this experience that have led to. I haven't actually had that explicitly, directly, to be honest. So one may become separated to stand outside of one's body, perhaps to view the body. And it's like, it's a bit like dreams. It's more lucid because you're aware that this is not a dream in the experience. It's a different thing. And there are different levels of dreaming as well. They can be, I kind of class dreams as, there's the normal dream, the brain sorting out bits and pieces and running scenarios, that kind of thing, random images, whatever, or not so random. And then there's the vivid, bright colourfulness of forays into what I would call the imaginal realm. And then alongside this would be the explicit invasion of either another consciousness or a vision which is being relayed, which you're experiencing, but it's being pushed in from an outside source, perhaps even the HGA. So anyway, getting back to the main thread. So, being out of body, the soul, you can encounter all kinds of strange things, and it seems to have its own flora and fauna, but it's going to be resonant with your state of development, with your mind, the things that are going on, the physical location as well. It's not always going to be, or quite often it will not be, radical. But I have found that if you're closer to nature, just in my own experience, the more likely you are to get a visitor. It can happen anywhere. You could be, sleeping around a friend's house or God knows what. You never know when this is going to strike. It's another matter to talk about doing this at will. That's another whole subject. But you never know when you're going to feel that uncoupling. Because this is the Broderick Wallace channel, we're going to bring in meditation here. Hang on, did I explore the thread of the receiver? then we'll get to meditation. So if the mind is receiving consciousness through the brain, it means that the brain acts as a filter in the same way that they say with psychedelics. Instead of your brain lighting up, they talk about these scans that they do. Instead of it lighting up like different areas and lots going on, there's less going on. Areas are being turned off. So it's like there's this grand reality, this interdimensional plethora of experience and states of being, which is turned off for the most part. And obviously the idea of sacred dance and psychedelics and ritual, all these kind of things, and direct training through meditation and similar techniques, one is able to win back some of the that extended reality, to step into that realm. Again, that beautiful picture, I used to know, it escapes my mind right now, the one of the guy in the corner of the picture where he's peering through the veil, that kind of image. So therefore, if you turn off the brain or parts of the brain, you gain access to a wider reality, similar to psychedelics, like I've said. So in vacancy of mind, when you are repeatedly, night after night, or morning, whatever, whenever you practice this, but it has to be kept up. It has to be pushed. There's, just as a side thing, laziness in meditation is a real issue, like, especially when you've got a lot on your mind, and you always have, because life's difficult. It's like sometimes you can feel yourself going through the motions. And as you would expect, my teacher has addressed this point. It's very important to be aware of this danger and to exist in meditation on the edge of your abilities. Sometimes this will, escape you at times, and you always need to keep bringing back that consciousness of that point, to exist on the edge of your abilities. So I wouldn't say it necessarily in a way which is uncomfortable, although I have gone that far and sometimes it feels necessary. It's possible to reach a state of calm and peaceful exertion. This energetic engagement, that term from my teacher. Energetic engagement is a really apt phrase. So therefore, in vacancy of mind, you are beginning to turn off the thinking process. It does sound impossible, and I know that there are people out there who really struggle with this exercise. And I think it's something, for a lifetime, really, something that you have to keep pushing and keeping sharp for a lifetime. So yeah, the idea of turning off the thinking process, turning off, you see, you have to remain aware, hence the energetic engagement of what you're doing, but it will become automatic. Posture and posture correction will become automatic. Because you've made a statement of what you're doing before you go in, it's kind of filled the air, almost like a ritual, like an opening ritual. It's filled the air, if you like, talking just as an image there. It's filled the air with the intention of spending that time doing what you're supposed to be doing on the edge of your abilities, but you can't be thinking about any of this while it's going on. Again, it's like the, I don't know if you can see it in this light. Probably not. No. It's like, just do it. You have to just do it. And so before we talk a little bit about effects, now most of the good stuff I'm saving for writing, and I'm doing that to be difficult on purpose, because it doesn't feel right to just relay experiences and drop hints about what's really important. You can't, just chuck your pearls before swine, as they say. But this channel's so obscure, and it takes some level of engagement. It's safe for the most part, and anyone who might be watching derisively, it doesn't concern me, because they won't really be listening. So it's pretty safe, I think, for the most part. So this vacancy of mind, it's all coming towards dreams eventually, I promise. We've tackled that a little bit already. So turning off the mind. So you can be of the correct opinion that I have some skill level, but I would not consider myself to be like a master of this. And as is plainly stated, I am working my way through the training as laid out by Franz Bardon. So I'm somewhere within this world. But obviously, many of us, we come from different backgrounds. We might have had experience in different things. We bring things with us. We bring our style. So again, I feel quite safe it's not possible to pin me down anywhere. And I always remember this as well when it comes to others. Because as I said in a text recently, actually, to someone that I respect, there are people out there, like, modern science hasn't got a clue. Modern science is clueless to some portion of natural ability, of course, but the trained ability. There are people out there walking around. Could be your neighbour. Obviously, they're going to be one in, perhaps, well, definitely thousands, perhaps even millions, right? But you never know. The guy who cuts your grass may be able to dispense change where appropriate, right? Like I say, modern science hasn't got a clue, and that's part of the problem, isn't it? Part of the, the meaning crisis. You see, things are never going to be awesome, are they? You look back at the ancient world, the amount of, horrific injustice going on there. There's, horrific injustice going on now. Like, the perspective shifts, but in some ways now although we're most of us in the, loosely speaking, the Western world, that model, and I'm not. Anyway, I'm talking to you from a van, right? So most people are quite comfortable. They've got a lot of gadgets, and although life's stressful, and driving around, like a chicken with its head cut off, trying to sort this out, do that, juggle their job with bringing up the kids and the career and the political situation and the fear of the future, and sitting in front of the TV for like 3 or 4 hours every evening, or God knows what. Like, it only seems normal because it happens so easily that people enter sleep. Or rather, it's a bit like that story of the fish. 2 young fish swim by an older fish, and the older fish says, "How do you find the water today?" or something like this. And then the 2 young fish, one of them looks around to the other and says, What's water? It's a bit like that, isn't it? The sleep. Gurdjieff talks about this, and we're all guilty to one level or another. This mass farm. So in some way there is a real merit to rebellion. When you, the term woke gets used for all kinds of weird reasons, and forget looking on Facebook, for any clear answer or strategy. You're best off finding out who's writing good books or who has a reputation for honourable deeds or exceptional abilities or knowledge. It's not immediately obvious, is it? Who could possibly have anything to say? Because it's a cacophony, isn't it? An absolute cacophony. And I will say it's almost threatened to put me off my favourite subject. There are times when it's like, I've already gone to the checking my notifications every Sunday, but obviously I go in and look at groups that I'm in to see if anyone's replied or what. You have to. Got to stay in contact with what's relevant. But it's like I logged on the other day, someone's like just uploading a picture of a hole in like a cliff face behind the pyramids. Like, look at this hole. It's like, okay, there's a hole in like a sand, what do you call it? A limestone cliff face behind the pyramid, right? Okay. And maybe it's the local toilet. Just please sit down. Just take a day off. Anyone who's posting every hour, unless they're involved in some serious endeavour of scholarship or whatever, or is directly helping or orchestrating some kind of business or whatever, it's a warning bell, isn't it? It's only going to get worse. This is the problem. As I was saying, every age comes with its problems. And you see, change is inevitable. Change is an issue. And this will tie into dreams again later. This inevitable change. Cultures rise and fall. Certain aspects get carried forward, little bits get lost. Certain similarities, the perennial truth, if you like. It doesn't matter exactly which culture you pick from, as long as you've got something of that, you can begin to piece things together. But it's always sad and interesting, obviously thinking about how much is lost when trying to piece together fragments of a particular line of thought. And of course, it's always important to stress that this aspect of change, it shouldn't be accepted outright. There should be a balancing factor, like there always is with everything. I always tend to look at things like two opposites running at the same time, stand somewhere in the middle and try and maintain some sort of balance between the two opposing views, if you like. Anyway, just a foray into just the absolute meaninglessness of modern. When you think about it, like, what are we doing? Generally speaking, where is the world going? We used to have this collective idea of space travel. That would have come with its own problems, but now that's kind of off the table. So then you've just got infinite, entertainment or, holidays or infinite creature comforts, and then all of a sudden the dream starts to become rotten, doesn't it? There's not infinite resources. This system of infinite growth, infinite inflation, whatever, all that crap, doesn't really work. But nothing does really work, does it? Not. But surely we should be more in tune with nature instead of this kind of brutal extraction of energy that's going on. People will always take the shortest route. People are asleep, people drive too fast because they just need to get shit done. They're not philosophizing like me in a van in the dark. Got things to do, things to get on with, like got to pay the bills, look after the kids. Very honourable, of course. So if you're so worried about things that really matter, you know, why are you driving 2 inches from the back of my vehicle? If you value your goals so strongly. Selfishness. This sleep. Different kinds of sleep. Different kinds of sleep going on. Different kinds of dreams. Some of these dreams can be pretty happy though, can't they? Got yourself a good job in that and get on with your boss. This dream's pretty cool. I'll state it's a bit like the Matrix, isn't it? No, don't give me the pill. I'll just, this is not too bad. I don't, not concerned about the future or the reality of why we're here. And then, as Herman Melville would point out, I'd like to think, if he was here, there's not one truth, is there? There's a plurality. There's not one way. It's just being human. It kind of precludes the possibility of actually accessing truth as it is in its rawest form, in its most raw form. This will tie in beautifully here with the idea of a mirror. In Vacancy of Mind, I did talk about an experience of seeing the god Odin stretching out his finger to a mirrored surface of water, like he was in the water. His finger was reaching towards the top of the water. And as his finger touched the surface of the water, there was a mirror image reflected of Odin meeting himself. And it's one of those visions I'll never forget because it perfectly illustrates the point. Odin being Mercury in the mind to a large degree. This vacancy of mind, this when thoughts are stilled and silent, the mind is able to perceive itself, right? And the mind uses symbols. You might say, you're not turning your mind off, you're turning your thoughts off, you're making the mind empty. So the mind will still have its functions, whatever they may be, obviously very sparse in this condition. So the function is to use symbols, as the human mind has done since the dawn of time, in order to relay abstract or, complicated concepts in as quickly as possible in that the form of a symbol. So it's like getting two mirrors and having them facing each other. Just a kind of, what would you see? Is there silver or something behind the glass? I don't actually know how a mirror is made, but I should look into that. That's interesting. You see, it's a miracle, isn't it, when you think about it? What is reflectivity? The fact that you can see yourself in water or a raindrop, or a shiny metal surface. Just think about that for a moment. Think about the physics of that, how that works. It's a bona fide miracle. It's kind of unfathomable, really, when you think about it. Without even getting into the idea of holograms, you cut them up and you get the same image but smaller. How long can you keep doing that for? I don't know. But this reflectivity, I had something there just enter. Terence McKenna pointed out this is part of the symbolic nature of liquid mercury. The fact that it can take any shape, it means, like the consciousness, if you put it into the brain of a bear, you're running the bear program. If you put consciousness into, the vessel of a human mind, you get the human experience, right? So consciousness being this kind of prime materia, if you look at it that way. Mercury, because it's like a liquid, it can take the shape of the mind, right? And it reflects everything that it's surrounded with. It takes in the reflection. If you really think about that, it's really a really beautiful observation. And Martin Fawkes, actually, in his book The Emerald Tablet, does go into detail on that, the idea of the building models within that mind, if you like. So recommended reading there. Good book, essential, to be honest. So with this mirrored surface of consciousness, beholding itself, what are you going to see? Well, I saw Odin that day. That's the symbol that it chose. If you were able to perceive something non-physical outside of yourself, it's going to be reflecting within your mirror. This is a really important point. And because I've already come so far on my own, I've already got right up to a point where I've actually discovered this for myself, then I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that my teacher did relay this point before I discovered this point. The quality of the reflecting medium will affect the impression that is imbibed. Thus, the idea in vacancy of mind is to become completely neutral, just turning everything off. And that's how you get close to the reality of consciousness. In other words, the mirrored liquid surface of Mercury begins to lose the shape of the brain as it's being turned off. It becomes the thing in itself. So in turn is able to more accurately perceive the truth of reality in itself. Just a few notes on Vacancy, because I know I've had a few people subscribe because my channel was advertised in the context of Franz Bardon on Facebook, and obviously I've interviewed Ron Clark, so there will be people who subscribe because they're interested in the training, maybe really far on, respect to you, because it's so difficult, and perhaps just beginning or curious. Like I said, because the posture will begin, it's that energetic engagement is going on, the just do it, the intention is set. Lots of things will be adjusting automatically. Breath begins to slow down. You have to strain to sort of almost squeeze, but just you're not interested. I have said before actually that being depressed is sometimes an advantage when you're attempting vacancy of mind, because you're not interested. You're like, I don't care about anything, I'm not interested in anything, I don't give a toss. So you have to kind of drum that up, even within a positive framework, this complete disinterest. And I'll tell you what vacancy of mind feels like when it starts to click. And that is drowning. Why? I don't know. Why? I've observed that there's a tendency to stop breathing, as if thoughts and the breath are somehow interconnected. When you think about the element of air is associated with the intellect and dialogue, the mind is always chatting to itself. That does make a lot of sense. So it might be quite fitting to think you enter this perfect metaphor, water, for this imaginal realm of raw emotions or whatever. It's quite fitting to think that as you begin to slow down and stop the thoughts, I mean, I don't know what it's like, obviously, but just, it does give me that impression, something that reminds me of being starved of oxygen. Why? There's another reason. Because breathing is the most natural thing in the world, right? Just doing it. You don't need to beat your own heart, do you? You don't need to breathe your own lungs. It's only when you actually think about it, that with your breath, that you gain some, obviously meditation, you take control of the breath, but day-to-day life, for most people, most of the time, the lungs just breathing themselves. So it's the most natural thing in the world to breathe. Also, by extension, it's the most natural thing in the world for the mind to constantly talk to itself, to have thoughts, to have images. And it's amazing how it will, it's like an opponent in a way. This is the idea. This is where the idea of Mara comes in the Buddhist tradition. Yeah, it will throw anything it can at you to get you thinking again. It will usually start with bills you need to pay, or appointments that need to be kept, or what this, what that. Shouldn't you go and sort out this on the van, or what if this happens? What if that happens? I've said it before to others. It's a crafty bastard. Again, very mercurial. It's the most natural thing in the world, like breathing. Stop thinking. It's like you're being suffocated. Just keep pushing it. Keep pushing it. That energetic engagement on the edge of ability. eventually it becomes natural. Eventually, it's only breathing without concentrating on the breathing. And vision in terms of a kind of center point of consciousness. Just pure being itself. Like a blob of mercury. Its surface unsullied by the ripples of anything unrequired. And I'll be honest, it's one of my favourite places to be. I would say that I favour vacancy of mind over anything that I'm currently doing or reading. It's somewhere that I'm continuously fascinated by how far it can be taken. Because getting back to the point about civilization and the monkey mind and comforts and needs and all that, there is no thought for well, there's no nagging lust going on in that moment. I'm not going to talk like it's perfect. I'm going to say after a period of time and practice, you can reach points. You start to, so some of this might be extrapolation, some of it is, states that I've reached, of course, but like different days, you're going to have different levels, of course. But you will notice that the average starts to go up, of course, with the exception of a particularly tricky set of circumstances or whatever. And if you think you can do that in a couple of weeks, like I did when I first picked up Bardon's book, I thought, yeah, I'm depressed, I don't care about anything. And I sat there, I think I've been drinking as well, not something that I ever have done in any large or excessive degree, but almost like a kind of curious experiment. I went through a period of depression. I was like, God, I'm just going to chuck a load of drink down my throat, and soon got bored of it. But I do remember that feeling of like, don't want to be here, not interested. But I am interested because there's things that are important to me. All right, this is just a coping strategy. That is not vacancy of mind. Transferring that state of mind into meditation, it's not. Because it's not pure enough. It's sullied by emotions. So starving yourself of the oxygen of thoughts in a way, until you reach that state of stillness, of just that node of pure being, just that reflective consciousness that is capturing either very little or nothing, generating either very little or nothing. What's the real trick? What's the real trick? Is there like a series of instructions? Not really. You kind of have to figure it out on your own. But you certainly can't do it in a couple of weeks, a couple of months, no way. So, getting away from the impermanence and the lust and the silly, the dumb-assed farmyard with its despotic rulers and its sick systems and its People that I don't know, I would describe them a bit like they're like maggots in the arse of a dying dog. I'm talking about, the people who use the system, and in the most vile way, I guess you would say, people who abuse its power for their own sense of aggrandizement. So holding those thoughts but getting away from that. Where do dreams come in between these 2 points? One of despair and the other of escaping reality into pure being. And only for the purpose of this talk, really. Because sometimes you can feel like, well, I'm doing all this, but kind of, even if I don't know, if I got really good and I took on students and I wrote this book and is it all just going to disappear one day? And the key is in dreams, really. Because in dreams, it's possible to gain intimations of certainty about things that begin to organize themselves into a kind of jigsaw puzzle over time. And it's always important to bring in chaos. Bring in the chaos with the weird, right? Chaos and the weird. That shall be a title of a chapter that I shall write at some point. And I was at the Egyptian, in the Egyptian section of the British Museum, talking to a lovely lady. And I was saying, it's like chaos and the weird. It's chaos and the weird. You should keep that. I was like, yeah, chaos and the weird. Yeah. So I do remember that, and I shall use it. So against the chaos, the weird is building up a jigsaw puzzle of intimations through dreams. And I'm not saying it's the same for everyone. You can, who cares? I mean, I'm just sitting here talking. I can say what I like, right? But I want to say what I mean as precisely as possible, and I'm going to keep the integrity of truth like I have done in every single video I've ever made. But I have to walk that fine line at the same time. So what I will say is, through dreams and the way that pieces may be laid on the table, but it won't be until a number of years before these pieces are connected with other pieces through, these different pieces of the puzzle that may be connected through the, just mundane happenstance. And you start to ask yourself the question, how did these two things connect when I felt like I was just simply making partially random decisions and other people were doing the same, and it's too complicated to ever unpick? Man has free will, obviously we do, right? So how could these two pieces possibly connect? So I would say throw in intimations of outside intelligences, the idea that all time exists at the same time. And if you're worried about your culture dying or anything like that, which has been it has certainly been a subject on this channel from time to time, everything seems to make its impression on the imaginal, if you want to say through the astral or whatever, right? It's still there. And it's accessible. More than likely, the only reason that you will even begin to attempt to access it is because it's already accessed you. There's a country that you need to visit. There's a culture or a line of thought that you're fascinated by. There's just a smell in the air. There's something that you need to do, you need to explore. All going back to one single, infinite, eternal, I don't know, oneness, you might say. I wouldn't say a plan, but an unfolding that, although is not I guess you could tie in the idea of free will again. Like, new things are happening all the time, and yet in some way that contradicts that, pieces of the puzzle are laid down before you're even born. And the clues to all this, the clues to building up this picture, and I won't go into too much, personal experience. I'll definitely save some portion of that for writing in the future. Some portion will always have to be, kept to the heart, if you like. But I can certainly talk about the experience. It was a dream that led me to this this book, or this book produced a dream. I wouldn't have met that person if it wasn't for etc, etc. Do you see what I mean? And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily like, there's always that chance that you're not going to follow the signs. It's like the imaginal is trying to have a conversation. And I know that someone else actually has made a good case online that the synchronicity is, he didn't use the exact term, the imaginal realm, or but to all intents and purposes, a realm of timelessness is trying to communicate with you in this world of finiteness. So pay close attention to your dreams. Take care.